There's this special kind of dread that only really comes out in the quiet hours after midnight, especially when you're the only one on the clock. It's that time when the whole world is supposed to be asleep and, well, the normal rules just feel like they don't apply anymore. So tonight, we're going to get into that. We're going to dissect that very specific fear by exploring the anatomy of night shift horror.
Think about that line. Someone actually said that to a lone gas station attendant. It perfectly captures the feeling, doesn't it? It's not just a comment, it's a reminder of just how isolated you are, how vulnerable. And that feeling, it just hangs over every single one of these stories we're about to look at.
So, what is it? What is it about being alone on these shifts that creates the perfect storm for absolute terror? Because it's way more than this being alone in the dark. There's a formula here, a pattern of behavior that can turn a totally quiet night into a living nightmare. And we're about to break that exact formula down. Okay, so to really get this, we're going to start with a case study, the story of a hotel night clerk. This whole encounter has every single key ingredient of night shift dread, from that first little feeling of unease all the way to outright terror.
And the thing is, it always starts with something that seems totally normal. A guy checks in, he gives a credit card, he gets a room key. But there's this one tiny detail that plants the first seed of doubt. He holds his stare just a little too long. It's a tiny break in the social script, but it's something the clerk just can't shake. So fast forward an hour and a half, and this is where things get weird. The guest is back down in the lobby, but he's not on his phone. He's not reading a book. He's just sitting there, staring at a TV that's turned off. This is the first major red flag, a break from normal behavior that's so passive but so deeply unsettling. He's not a guest anymore. He's an enigma. So the clerk, his gut is telling him something's off, and he checks the hotel's computer system. And what he finds just makes no sense. Even though he checked the guy in himself, there are 0 check-in logs. Not under his name, not for that room. According to the system, the room is completely empty. Okay, so maybe it's a glitch, right? He digs a little deeper. He checks the payment records for the night. And again, he finds the exact same chilling result. 0 credit card transactions. Nothing. The card he swiped, the one that seemed to go through, it left no trace at all.
And then there's one last check he can do, the keycard entry log for the guy's supposed room. And it's empty. 0 entries. The man never even went upstairs. He was never a guest. He was something else entirely, and he was still sitting right there in the lobby.
And from that point on, the whole thing just escalates step by creepy step. He goes from just sitting there to actively probing the space, hiding in dark corners, wandering the halls, and then finally standing right outside another guest's door. Every move is a deliberate turn of the screw, stretching out over hours.
So when the cops finally show up, the truth is confirmed. He was an imposter. The credit card was stolen. His entire act, the whole check-in, was a performance with just one purpose, to get inside the locked building. What he was planning to do after that? Well, that's left to our imagination. And honestly, that ambiguity is a huge part of the terror.
So here's the thing you gotta get. This story isn't just some random scary encounter. It's actually a blueprint for this specific kind of fear. So now let's deconstruct that blueprint and look at the 2 core archetypes that really define night shift horror.
All right, first up, and this is the big one, the Watcher. This plugs directly into our primal fear of being prey. See, it's not just about being seen, it's about being studied by someone, and you have no idea what they want. The fear comes from the sheer unknown potential behind that stare. And once you see it, you start seeing this archetype everywhere. It's the hotel guy staring at a blank screen. It's Paul from that other story just sitting in his car at the edge of the lot with the headlights off, just watching. It's those coordinated cars with no license plates staking out another gas station. It's this recurring theme of silent, menacing observation. Okay, so the second piece of this puzzle is what I call the boundary crosser. This is when the fear goes from passive to active. The antagonist doesn't just watch anymore. They start to methodically break all the unwritten rules of social interaction and personal space, all to create terror. And there's this one line from another story from Meredith, the gas station clerk, that just perfectly nails this. When a total stranger, this guy Paul, calls her by her first name, this is her immediate panicked thought. How? How could he possibly know her name? It's information he shouldn't have. It's a clear violation. And this kind of thing, it shows up in so many ways. It's knowing these creepy, intimate details, like how Meredith dots her I's, or knowing her exact nightly routine. It's Daniel's story of a hand reaching out from underneath his own desk. I mean, a total invasion of his workspace. And of course, it's the hotel man lying his way inside. Every single act is a calculated step over a line you're not supposed to cross. So here's the scary part. These guys, the Watchers and the Boundary Crossers, they're not just making this up as they go. Their actions follow this predictable and absolutely terrifying pattern of escalation. It's like they're working from a playbook for psychological warfare. And when you lay them all out side by side like this, you can see their methods are different, right? Deception, stealth, showing off this creepy personal knowledge. But look what stays the same. The goal is almost always unknown. That uncertainty, that what do they want, is a massive amplifier for the fear. And it almost always boils down to this same four-step pattern. First, they watch. Second, they test a boundary, like knowing a name they shouldn't, or just staring too long to see how you'll react. Third, they escalate. The behavior becomes way more obvious and threatening. And finally, the whole thing only ends when there's a confrontation, or more often, when a third party shows up, like the police or other customers, to break the spell. So why? Why do these stories get under our skin so deeply? Why do they stick with us long after we've heard them? Well, the answer really goes to the very core of how we all function in society. Look, we all walk around with this unspoken agreement in our heads, right? The social contract. We assume people are going to behave in predictable, non-threatening ways. You don't stare at a blank TV for hours. You don't go learn a stranger's daily habits. You don't hide under their desk. The horror in these stories comes from people who don't just break that contract. They seem to enjoy using its rules against us. And that really just leaves us with one last kind of unsettling question. That gut feeling, that sense of deep unease that every single one of these clerks felt right at the beginning, that was their intuition screaming that the social contract had just been shattered. And it makes you wonder, for all of us, in a world that tells us to be polite, to be accommodating, how often do we actually listen to that scream?